Cool. So I made a video yesterday about this verse, I made a video yesterday about this verse, which says, "He who tills his land will have plenty of bread." And that verse is found in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 11. He who tills his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless things lacks common sense and good judgment. So I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper on that because, I did a short and 60 seconds, I shared three verses in that 60 seconds, and I didn't really, have any time to expound on those things. So what does that mean? He who tills his land will have plenty of bread. Well, farmers, when they're preparing to plant their crops, they have to till the land. They have to use this tiller to kind of break up the ground so that they can put seeds in there so that it's basically kind of like planting, or it's preparing the soil to plant. So, in our Bible study meeting last night, we had Michael share, and he was talking about the crop rotation, which is, when you're planting, when you're sowing, you want to be continually rotating the crops so that you're not entering into a season of harvest followed by a season of sowing without having another harvest. So you want to have different seeds in different seasons so that all year round you are able to reap something of some kind from some of your seed. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Now, he who tills his land will have plenty of bread. What does that mean? Well, that means that we need to be continually tilling our land. We need to be continually preparing the soil to sow. And it goes without saying that we need to be continually sowing. So if we are continually sowing, if we are continually putting seed into the ground in every season, then we're going to have plenty of bread. Now, in Ephesians it's Ecclesiastes. In Ecclesiastes chapter 11, it talks a lot about sowing. Cast your bread on the surface of the waters. Be diligently active, making thoughtful decisions, for you will find it after many days. Now, the second part of this verse, he who follows worthless things lacks common sense and good judgment. If you could see the results of your actions, you would be like immediately. If you could see the results of your actions immediately, you would probably behave much differently. And I say you, but I'm talking to me, talking to everybody. There's an immediate gratification that comes from doing things that require low or no self-discipline, eating bad, like junk food, eating things that are not good for you. Those provide an instant gratification, dopamine, and all those different things, but they end up having long-term negative effects. They end up, causing you to, get overweight, or they cause you to end up having health problems, heart problems, whatever the case may be, cause your energy levels to get depleted. That's one example. Watching television or social media, you get an instant dopamine hit from, whatever the entertainment, and it allows you to not have to think critically and stuff. So there's the immediate gratification that comes from that, but you're sacrificing their time. So if you think of yourself as a farmer, you think of yourself as a sower, every action that we take is a seed. Everything that we do has a harvest. It has either the results of negative things or positive things. So when we are working, for example, then we are able to produce income. And so that's what this verse is talking about, is he who tills his land will have plenty of bread. The guy that works hard is going to have plenty to eat, right? And if you are following worthless things like scrolling on, consuming social media, or watching television, or playing video games, or I'm trying to think of other things that people do that are not productive. But those things that are unproductive are not going to allow you to be able to increase your income. They're not going to be able to give you an ability to provide a better life for yourself. And so I kind of have to move on, because I do want to talk about the other two verses from that video yesterday in just a moment here. But I'll go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 11. It says, sow your seed in the morning, in verse 6, sow your seed in the morning, and do not be idle with your hands in the evening, for you do not know whether the morning or the evening planting will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both alike will be good. As I was reading that, I thought about a couple of other things that were unproductive and not great use of your time. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have break time, downtime, rest time, and all that, but I'm saying, do not let that consume you. Do not be your primary focus. You want to be focusing on being productive, or in my opinion, you want to be focusing on being productive, because, I know I see a lot of people that they struggle and they're not making the most of their time, and they're not really providing that much productivity. They're not providing that much effort. They're not tilling their land that much. And they're wondering why, they're having so many hardships and adversities. And that's just, we get what we give. There's sowing and then there's reaping. If you're not sowing, tilling your land, you're not going to reap having plenty of bread. Sowing your morning seed and your evening seed. Don't be idle in the evening, for you don't know whether the morning or the evening planting will succeed. This is a great verse, because it tells us that we don't know what effort is going to yield the results. We don't know which seed is going to have the harvest that we desire. So it's very important for us to be continually sowing our actions, but also, when we talk about actually like sowing. I was in a very difficult season a couple of months ago, and I really didn't even have any money to sow. It was just a very difficult time financially for me. It was a difficult time in my business, and I didn't even have anything to sow. I was sowing the word, but that'll only get you so far. And there's this verse I think it's in Haggai, and it says, "Is the seed yet in the barn?" And, I thought about that verse, and I said, no, the seed is definitely still in the barn. And I went in my closet and I just started pulling stuff out that I had in there. It's just sitting in my closet. And I had enough money that I could mail that stuff to people. So I just started mailing it to people. I just started mailing stuff. I had, Faith Builders gear that I was sending out. And if you want some Faith Builders gear, feel free to drop a comment or send us an email, faithbuildersmensgroup@gmail.com. We'll send you a hoodie. We'll send you a hat. We'll send you a journal. We'll send you some of these WWJD wristbands. All that stuff is free. You don't even have to pay the shipping. We'll send it to you. But I didn't have money really. I just had enough to send, some packages out. It was a very difficult time for me and my finances, but I had all these things, not even the Faith Builders gear. I'm talking about, I had, other hats. I collect hats, and what's wrong with me? But I have all these hats that I had collected that, most of them I never wear. There's like 3 hats that I wear pretty much every day. I wear like one for work. I wear one just clowning around and chilling. And then I have another one that I wear to the gym, but I can only really wear one at a time. And I really only need those 3. So I have all of these hats, and I just started mailing these hats to people. And I had like journals, and I had all these things that I had gotten from this conference that I had gone to, just like they had all this gear, and I was just collecting all this gear. So I started sewing out all those things that were just sitting in my closet, brand new, never used. And, I say all that to just demonstrate that, even if you don't have anything financially to sow, like you have something that you can sow. And the harder it is for you to part with those things. I sewed a guitar. I sewed, not, it wasn't my favorite guitar, but like it was my favorite one to play. It was like my favorite freaking guitar. Like I freaking love that guitar. I had that guitar for years. I wrote a lot of songs on it. It was it was really special to me, that guitar. And I miss that guitar all the time. That was a very hard seed for me to sow. But guys, I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything to sow. So I sowed that guitar with faith, with an expectation that there was going to be a harvest. And that was really hard for me to do. And it wasn't like a $200 guitar either. You know, it was a very nice guitar. But I sewed it. And you guys have some stuff that you don't want to sew, but if you don't have many options, sew it. You don't know whether, you know, the sewing of the hats or sewing of the journals or sewing of the guitar, you don't know which of those things is going to produce. And then once I started getting, you know, some money a little bit, then I started selling that as well. So you don't know which seed that you're sowing is going to have harvest. If the clouds be full of rain, they empty themselves in the earth. And if a tree falls toward the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it lies. He who watches the wind, waiting for all conditions to be perfect, will not sow seed. And he who looks at the clouds will not reap. So we need to be sowing, not looking at circumstances, not waiting for the perfect conditions. We absolutely need to be sowing despite the conditions, despite the way things look. You know, we talk about walking by faith, but we need to actually do that. We need to actually go out there and sow by faith. Because when I was giving up that guitar, I was like, I know that first of all, there's seed, there's time, and then there's a harvest. It's not like I'm going to sew that guitar today and then I'm going to turn around and just have, you know, the floodgates open up in my business, or, you know, somebody's going to just cut me a check for $1 million. That's not exactly how it works. I knew that there was going to be some time where, even though I had just sown this seed, I'm going to have to wait for that harvest to come to fruition. And the harvest season has come now. And, you know, there's a verse that says that when the harvest has come, put in the sickle. I'm putting in the sickle now because the harvest has come for me in my life, but I want to provide this encouragement to you guys. And I'm going to talk about 2 more verses really quick, and I could just hang out here in Ecclesiastes chapter 11. It really is very good about talking about sowing and reaping. So just to summarize what we talked about in this chapter here, in the last verse, he who tills his land will have plenty of bread. If you follow worthless things and you lack common sense and good judgment, so don't follow worthless things. In Ephesians chapter 5:15, it says, see that you walk carefully, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of your time on earth, recognizing and taking advantage of opportunities and using them with wisdom and diligence. So there's countless opportunities for us to be able to recognize and for us to be able to take advantage of. And we need to be in a place where we are able to do that. We need to be plugged in with God so that our Holy Spirit inside of us can tell us, like, hey, this is something that you need to take advantage of. This is something that you need to jump on. Casting our bread on the surface of the water, because we'll find it after many days. When we're sowing, there's going to be a little bit of time, and then we're going to be reaping. Sow in the morning. Don't be idle with your hands in the evening. Sow, not just, sow things, but be sowing your time, sowing your attention. It says in Mark 4:14 that the sower sows the word. Cool stuff there. He who watches the wind, this is the only one in here that's underlined. He who watches the wind, waiting for all conditions to be perfect, will not sow. He who looks at the clouds will not reap a harvest. Do not wait for conditions to be perfect to sow. Get out there and sow something, and the conditions will get better. And maybe when the conditions get a little bit better, so will the harvest that is a result of the seed. But if you wait and you wait and you wait, then there's all this time that you haven't sown. And one of these days I'm going to do a whiteboard video on here. I just got to figure out how to do that. But that's going to be really a good way that I can kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about. Now, the next verse is that the Lord searches and examines the mind, and he tests the heart to give to each man according to his ways and according to the results of his deeds. So God is giving us according to the results of our deeds. Now, I went into that difficult season of my business, and a lot of it, there was a lot of things that were going on there. And the business is my only source of income, really. It's my primary, but really my only source of income. So when the business is kind of struggling, then I'm struggling, right? And there's a lot of reasons for why that had kind of transpired the way that it did, which I don't really have the time to go into right now. But I was reaping according to my deeds. I guess I'll go into it a little bit. So what I was working very, very hard at the end of last year in order to drum up business and to be able to get them, they call it the money wheel, get the money wheel turning and get things moving, get jobs coming in and closing up the jobs that were already in, that kind of thing. And everything was moving, picked up so much momentum at the end of last year that I just stopped pushing. I just stopped doing all the things that had generated all that momentum. And then the wheel was just moving and moving, and it was slowing down. And then eventually it ended up coming to a stop. And I didn't realize it until a month or two after it had stopped that, hey, what I'm getting is according to the results of my deeds. I wasn't doing the things that were going to generate more leads and more business and more prospects. So that was very difficult for me to come to that realization. And once I realized that, boom, it was right after, I started sowing those seeds, then the Lord really gave me an understanding of what was going on and how I could change that. Right. So I have a call I'm supposed to be on right now. I just told him 5 more minutes. So, see that you walk carefully. So we talked about the Ephesians 5. So that's basically the long and short of what I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I could go for an hour or two probably just talking about this, just because it's so real, so tangible to me in my recent experience. But I'm going to button it all up, put it in a bow for you here, and send you on your way. So what did we talk about today? Well, we want to see that we are walking carefully, making the most of our time, recognizing and seizing opportunities. We want to make sure that we're not waiting for the perfect conditions to start doing the right stuff. If I would have been doing the right things, if I would have been continuing to sow, if I would have been not just sowing, supernatural sowing seed, but like if I was sowing my effort towards, prospecting and finding new clients and all those things, then things would have been looking a lot different. And the Lord searches and examines the heart to test and give us according to the results of our deeds. So the things that we do matter. We need to be super, super conscious of how impactful and important the things that we do are. And we're supposed to be walking carefully. It says in one translation, we're supposed to be redeeming the time. And one way that I like to redeem the time, because I'm just a little crazy, is I like to use these sheets that I'll track what I'm doing every 10 minutes. And so it's important for me to do that so that I can be accountable for my time, so I can make the most of my time. And I can do way more in way less time, which allows me to have to either do less, or I get to get more done in a shorter period of time, which gets me to move the ball faster. So God is so good, guys, and I really wanted to try to unpack these verses a little bit, because the 60-second video and apparently now a 20-minute video, they don't give me enough time to really get into it on these things, because it is so important, this concept of sowing and reaping. Like Brother Mike was talking about yesterday, the crop rotation, continuing to sow in all seasons, but not just sowing seed for a harvest, but also understanding that our actions, our seeds, and the things that we do are going to yield a harvest. So if we're sowing hours and hours and hours of TV or video games or social media, there is no benefit, there's no result that we would like to have that is going to come from that, because it says that the Lord gives to each man according to the results of his deeds. And that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I really got to get up out of here. Don't follow worthless things, I guess is what I'll say here before I let you go. But that's it. Thank you for stopping by. I hope that this was an encouragement. Don't follow worthless things.